to the June or whenever the next ban list is Wishlist, but I'm assuming that we're going to be getting one in June. If not, well, probably the following month, or maybe not for a long time. But anyways, this is going to be the Yu-Gi-Oh! Communities list, and I might make my own personal one later down the line, but this is what a lot of people would like to see banned, semi-limited, or limited on the list. But we're doing this live, so I'm going to be reading my chat as well, so if you guys want to go ahead and talk about it, feel free to go and talk about it, and we'll mention it. But for the most part, this is what a lot of people want to see on the next upcoming ban list. So for starters, I want to go ahead and go over the cards I think all of us can agree on. I don't think there's that many people that will disagree with cards like Royal Magical Library, Magical Explosion, all of the Cannon Soldiers, and Shadow Priest of Ohm. All of these facilitate FTKs. It doesn't really help out too much for the most part of the game's state being in a state where people are happy. I think none of these cards really see play outside of FTKs, so those reasons, I think we can all agree on this. Now, the next card is kind of a troll card. I know a lot of people really love this card, but every single time I mention, hey guys, what would you guys like on the ban list? It's always Mystic Mine. This is always on people's mind because it's frustrating. It really is. It sets up the duel to be like, oh my, every time you play Mystic Mine, or your opponent plays it, you think, oh my gosh, like, unless of course you're playing like a Mystic Mine deck and you're like, oh, I don't even care. But for the most part, this is one of the most frustrating cards. The thing that I think a lot of people have been saying and mentioning every single ban list is, what about Harpy's Feather Duster? It's been there in the OCG for so dang long, and nobody, for the most part, is even main decking it. If you look at the top OCG decks, a lot of people do side deck it. It is still a fantastic card, but at the same time, well, there are some Harpy cards that support it, but we're really not playing any back row. I mean, this card coming back into the game would probably still make it so people wouldn't want to play back row, but at the end of the day, it is a card that a lot of people wanted to mention, so I'm going to go ahead and obviously mention it. Next up over here, the Astrograph Sorcerer 2-1. Pendulum decks, while they still are very powerful, most of the metagame has pretty much shifted up over here into the Eldritch. Thank you so much, by the way. I am Komani for gifting Nico a Subarino. But the Eldritch and, of course, the Adamantia, or the Emancipator deck, mostly are the most popular ones right now. Whereas Pendulum, they still can set up boards with insane negates, but we're looking at the consistency of some of the decks. The Astrograph Sorcerer would be a great addition, because obviously Electro is gone, so I think this would be maybe an appropriate thing. We can see it over already at 1, the OCG, and I just checked out freshly what was winning in the OCG, because even though we share different ban lists, a lot of times you kind of can look at the OCG and see where their ban list is going and what has kind of done something, or even nothing, to get an idea. Next up, I wanted to mention Mercurial the Instructor. Now, obviously, this card is super broken and should never come back into the game in its state of where it originally had its effect. But if you guys didn't know, it had it in errata. Normally what happened is, if this card was sent to the graveyard, you can activate trap cards from your hand, infinite amounts, so you can just Reckless Greed, and it was FTK Central. But the newer version of Mercurial is so bad that it's not even really worth running. It has to be sent from the monster zone to the graveyard, and then this turn you could activate 1 trap card. Like, they nerfed this card so hard. If it had the errata of it saying, like, you can activate 1 trap card per turn, and every single turn, but it's only the turn that it's sent. It's just, there's no point for this card to really exist on the ban list if it has the new errata anyways. But these are cards I think a lot of people would like to see at 1. Well, Block Dragon could potentially be banned as well. I mean, Block Dragon facilitates huge boards to the point where your opponent basically just loses. And Block Dragon is very easy to go ahead and pull off. So I feel like, for the most part, again, this would be a card that would be, I don't think they'd put it at 2, it doesn't make sense. So it's either 1 or banned for the most part. Next up, a lot of people also mentioned for the deck to also get hit with Doki Doki, making it so the deck is hindered even more. Obviously, to put it at 2, I mean, I don't know. You guys can let me know how you feel about this, but I definitely see Block Dragon being the main card. If they don't hit Block Dragon, maybe Doki Doki, but I think Block Dragon is what's on everyone's mind. As far as the Eldritch deck, which is the next deck that I think everyone, for the most part, would like to go ahead and see hit on the list. Again, these aren't banned, these are just at 1 or 2. I mean, a lot of people play 2 anyways, but the best card Red Splatter is so great for the archetype over here. And I think these are the key cards that people would like to see hit. Again, I don't see a point of hitting this deck too hard though, because if you guys think about it, it did recently come out, but the prints are already out. Whereas what I'm thinking with the most recent set, which we'll get into with dinosaurs, I could see them not hitting this for a while. So if you guys didn't know, a lot of the most recent set, the one that has the Jewel Beast, oh, did they change the name? Well, you guys know what I'm talking about. Someone in the chat, what's the little dinosaur, is it a reptile? The one that it works in dinos. It was called Jewel Beast, but they, I believe, changed the name. That was RO. It's well, someone will mention it. Oh, they changed it? Yeah, okay, what the heck is this? Is that? Anyways, is it alligator? Alligator Swordsman, that's the card. You guys are so troll. But anyways, there it is. Okay. So this is the Jewel Beast Argosaurus is what I remember the name of. But this card hasn't really been printed, and there's a delay on a lot of these being shipped out. And if they're going to sit in stock for a while in different regions, I don't see them hitting, again, that hard at all. And I'll get into maybe what would be hit with dinosaurs. But for the most part, this did come out, and it has enough time to have its printings out. I also saw a lot of people wanting to see Magician's Souls. If we go to TCG over here, we can see this a little bit better here. But a lot of people also want to see Magician's Souls hit. I mean, maybe if it gets hit, you guys will finally be able to afford a couple, because this card is absolutely way too expensive. Maybe there's a lot of people that actually want to play Dark Magician but can't afford this card. But if you guys think it should be hit, again, let me know what would you put this card at. Would you guys put it to 2? Would you put it to 1? Again, I don't think it would be banned. I think this card has potential. I mean, in fact, these cards like Jet Synchron, O-Lion, and the Gofu over here, all of these cards have basically the same effect. It's getting those tokens, and with, of course, O-Lion with the Auroradon that everyone is using right now, for the most part, to extend some of your combos and then make those unbreakable boards. These cards are all, again, I mean, also there's Crystron, Hulk over here is also another contender to be actually banned. Again, these ones mostly are limited, semi-limited. But the next card I wanted to briefly talk about, coming off the ban list, maybe with an errata, and I'm also curious to know, what would you guys make the errata for Max C as far as the next ban list? If it was to come back at 3, what would you change it to? Because in the OCG, I mean, they have 3 in every single deck, and it hasn't been changed. But as far as Max C goes, I feel like it's really nasty to go ahead and make a board and then say, okay, Max C. But at the same time, Max C is so powerful that a lot of people don't want it to come back, but some people want it to come back because they're like, well, I can't deal with those people that make those insane boards. But as far as it being errata, I think one good thing would be, like, you can't control any special summon monsters, so you can't make a board and then say to your opponent, I drop Max C, because it makes it way too difficult. This card has been on the list for the longest time. There was like a loop that you can kind of do, but it doesn't really work for the most part. This does facilitate technically Birdman FTK, but I don't really see someone trying to pull off Birdman FTK. It's not the most consistent of decks to go ahead and pull it off, but yeah, the Gallus, Quackimero Doom, like, it's so inconsistent, and your deck has to be all monsters pretty much. I mean, you could maybe play a couple spells, but if you RNG into the Gallus, then you lose out on it. But it requires you to have Quackimero, and then Birdman, and Gallus, and then again your deck has to be all monsters. Another card that I think a lot of people want to come back is Perform Pal Skullcrabat Joker for, of course, the Pepe. Again, Pendulums haven't been doing anything. It is technically at 1 in the OCG. I'm kind of like checking the OCG as kind of reference here. Oh, there's OCG Korea. Do they have a different list? Okay, that's interesting. I didn't actually know that OCG specifically Korea had a different ban list, but apparently they do. Skullcrabat Joker hasn't really been doing anything for the most part. Necros hasn't been doing anything in the OCG. Again, in TCG right here, we have Unicorn. And if you really want to lock your opponent out of the extra deck, there are cards that technically can do that. This one doesn't lock your opponent out of the extra deck, just negates their effect. So you can still make something in the extra deck and just attack over this card, and you'll be good to go. But for the most part, I haven't really seen anyone successfully use Necros in quite some time, so this could be a card to hit. Now, since we mentioned hitting some of the best decks, obviously Shadal's made the Invocation really popular. I've seen the Eldritch. There's so many variants. These are kind of being splashed in, all of these. But, I mean, you don't really need to hit Alistair at all. It's just basically these two cards that you would maybe take a look at. Whether these cards go to 2 just so they can, or if Invocation goes to 1 or Magical Meltdown, the other one can go to 2. Whatever the case may be, I think that this would be an okay middle ground for most players. They wouldn't complain too much if these cards were at 2. If you put one of them to 1 and the other one to 2, then people are like, ooh, I don't know about it. But this card's very expensive still. Nonetheless, that was a card people wanted to go on the list. Next up, Fossil Dig and the Miscellaneousaurus. Both of these are going to be really great cards, or even Obiraptor. Like I mentioned before, since the most recent, well, it's, what is it, Ecto, right? What was it? What's it? Addamed? Hold on, I gotta. Okay, the Archaeosaur from Eternity Code. Yeah, since Eternity Code doesn't have its print, I feel like them hitting it in July would be too early because, again, most stores won't have it. So, again, I feel like this wouldn't get hit too hard. If anything, maybe they'll be like Fossil Dig and Miscell at 2 and it doesn't matter too much. But this is definitely like the best card. I mean, you literally Miscell and have one of the baby dinosaurs and you just full combo your opponent. But next up, this card would be a card that I would consider to be banned, or they could hit one of the cards. I don't think the Infinite Loop is something that people like to deal with, and I just think that it's dumb. I know it's not the most popular thing, but I think it is an appropriate card to actually hit on the list because no one likes no interaction games. You'd have to be able to change something to the combo, and a lot of people will go Avermax and then make it so you can't attack this card, and then you basically just lose out. Same thing with the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword. People also mentioned Union Carrier should be hit. Either way, whatever you decide to hit with this little engine, hit it, and then, or you can hit the Samorg Link. But for the most part, I feel like the Smorg Link works so well with the newer Harpies that wouldn't make too much sense. But I think that these cards, if these cards got banned, I would not be surprised. I saw a few people mentioning Mirage. Zodiac wasn't too insane with 1. I did see a lot of people try to play the deck, honestly. But at the same time, I think 2 might make players more interested in it, but it wasn't a huge threat because there's just so many negations that go on with Yu-Gi-Oh! That, I mean, it would facilitate people trying to splash this in a lot of different decks. But again, at the end of the day, would it be the S tier meta deck? As of right now, Dragma, Noble Knights, the Flame Noble Knights are actually the most popular decks. Orcus is still there in the OCG, but their list is a little different. But Zodiacs, they're just not there. Even if we go to the OCG over here, they're not doing it. So I've seen a lot of people always talk about Wind Up Hunter and Zemedi. If they get rid of Hunter, I think Zemedi can come back into the game, no problem at all. 2 other cards that could be contenders, Dustbot 001. And I know this card, we don't have it yet, but if they want to preemptively hit it, this could be something that people will want to be hit. It's just it's a special summon and it becomes a tuner. It just facilitates a lot of openers for some combos, and obviously Isolde is such a fantastic card for them. I see someone in the chat mention that the Engage is at 0. I mean, we were splashing this on everything. Can it come back to 1? You guys can let me know how you feel about that down below. But again, this is the community list. This is not really my list over here. So for the extra deck, a lot of these are just banned or getting to put to 2, like this card over here. Come on. Anyways, this card, obviously this card is like insanely powerful. It facilitates so many insanely broken combos to be a lot more consistent. So I think that this card could be a contender to be hit. Next up, though, S0 Utopic Zexal. This is another one of those, like, your opponent cannot Yu-Gi-Oh! Same thing with this card. I mean, I know these don't see that much play, but I just think that they're dumb. I mean, it's kind of the same reason why, like, no one plays these cards for the most part in like, the most higher tier competitive, but just make them gone so we go in, we don't have to deal with it. That's just the way I see it. I saw a lot of people mentioning the Bow of the Goddess to be too powerful, as in every deck just makes it, and then they can stop all the hand traps, they can stop anything that would disrupt some of your combos, and then you can't play the following turn. And I get it. I don't think that it's fun to play against some of these things. Same thing with like Naturibius. I saw this card mentioned. It's for the Pendulum players. If they get this, who cares if they get it, because Nat Beast stops everything. A lot of decks can make Netria Beast, and some decks will facilitate the option to try to go ahead and go into it. But anyways, Denlong opens up a lot of FTKs, but most of the cards were like done with Ancient Fairy. I don't know. This is a card I've seen a few people mention. Obviously, it's not really used for like a normal Yang Zing deck. It's usually used for FTKs. I'm not positive if there's going to be a new FTK that emerges if Denlong comes back, but at the moment in the OCG, they've got triple of it, and they don't have a problem. But there could be a very specific combo that requires very specific cards that just aren't on their list as well. Another contender to be banned is the Auroradon. A lot of people mention this. It's kind of like this. It just facilitates a lot of combos, even with like Link Cross, which Link Cross, again, I'm not going to mention it here because I feel like it's, again, the Eternity Code, it's if they hit that, I would be really surprised. But I think Auroradon, all these little like smaller synchro plays with all the tokens and stuff, they get to be too much for some people. Clonohawk, now we're going into cards that I didn't like order in any way here, but nonetheless, I feel like the Clonohawk over here should definitely go to 2 or 3 even. I don't see the Spiritual Beast becoming a huge threat into the game. That's at least my personal take on it. And I think this could have been done a long time ago. I've also mentioned many times ago, Shaddolls can come back into the game, and they did. Obviously made the new structure starter deck, and then they changed the list. So the thing is, and they didn't really like shake up the meta too much. I mean, they did a little bit here, but for the most part, like we're talking about right now, this is this and this is the deck, right? But I also feel like the Totally Awesome can go to 2, and I don't think it'd be too insane into the game. Same thing with Buster Dragon. You could put it at 3. But nonetheless, this is also something to take into consideration. I also mentioned Link Cross, but this, I believe, comes out in Eternity Code, right? For the TCG. This is another card where, like, dinosaurs can technically make it. There's also water variants that can go for this. This card just, again, facilitates no play. As far as the OCG goes, they had a deck called Dragon, which was, at first I was thinking all I do is go for this. And you look at every single deck in the OCG, and, well, because they have this, right? They're all just going everyone makes Predaplant Dragon of Red Eyes. It's normal. It's very powerful. Putting these at 1, in my personal opinion, doesn't really do too much. Unless, of course, you're playing the builds that run Extravagance with this, which technically can be a thing, where you just max out on 3 of these, and you run Extravagance as extra draw power. But for the most part, again, I feel like you make one of these, you win a lot of duels anyways. You don't really need to play multiple. There are some people that do play multiple, but I think these are just way too powerful into the game. And I don't see them really hitting these, because it recently did come out, but putting this to 1 doesn't really do too much. Again, it's either at multiple or banned. For me, it doesn't really change up too much, unless, again, you're playing Extravagance. It's not like people make triple copies of this in one deck, which you could probably do, because a lot of decks might not have multiple outs to Dragon of Red Eyes. But I'll mention it because a lot of people complained about this card while we had our discussion, so I made a note to mention it. But again, that's just how I feel about it. I already mentioned Union Care. So maybe if Hunter gets banned, they can go ahead and swap. Now, okay, this card is another card I saw a few people mention because of the macro effect. I just didn't have room because these belong in the extra deck. These are things that I did want to mention here. I heard a lot of people wanting to get rid of Nibiru. I felt like it was, personally for me, this card's fair. My opponent, especially someone's like 50 times, I'm going to be like, okay, I'm going to give you this. More likely, they probably would have been able to negate Nibiru along the way. Anyways, I don't think this deserves to be in the ban list, but I heard a lot of people complain about it. And again, this is supposed to be the Yu-Gi-Oh! Ban list wish list from the community. My list is totally different. And if you want to see my list, subscribe to the bell, and you might see it hopefully before the actual list comes out. Because my list would be a little bit different, but I just want to get some of you guys' feedback as well, in case I missed out on anything I'll mention in my video. But this is another card that's really annoying. So many decks are just able to go ahead and pump this card out, and it's just another negation. Plus, it has that macro effect. You know, macro and defisher have to be at 1, but like this card is adding a lot more consistency to things. But I mean, Nibiru, for me, I think this card is fair, but some people wanted this card banned. I mean, I don't really think it does too much at like 1. It's like you have it or you don't. But again, I don't see it being hit. But the Arclight, I really don't think it would be hit anyways. People do want Shuri Beast, and I get that one, because you play Pendulums, you're not having fun. But let me move these out of the way. So these are the wild cards that I wanted to mention, because if you guys remember, we had Snatch still come back onto the list. We had Monster Reborn go back and forth, but the thing is that a lot of times Konami will be like, all right, surprise, this card is now on the list, so I'm going to go ahead and mention some of the cards that are a little bit wild that could come back into the game because, you know, anything is possible, right? Anyways, Yatagarasu, I feel like, are you really going to go ahead and go second and think that Yata is going to be a good play? Or obviously turn 1, you're not going to summon Yata, it just bounces back, right? So it's not a good first turn play, it's not a good second turn play. I don't think that there's any FTKs with it, but I could be wrong. There might be someone that knows how to FTK with Yatagarasu. Again, I just don't think it's possible. Heck, if you guys check, Time Seal is still on this list too. Why is this card here where it skips the draw phase of your opponent's next turn? Are you going to Master Restrict and do an infinite loop? I mean, there's probably better options than to successfully set this card, get Master Restrict, and then infinitely loop it with, what is it, Tsukiyomi? Like, you guys remember how long Tsukiyomi was on the list and it didn't matter at all? This is like another card where I feel like, unless there's some type of loop that I'm unaware of, is not going to be that viable. And same thing with Yata. I don't see it, but again, someone let me know in the comment section below if Time Seal or Yata has a very consistent FTK. Obviously with Yata, like, are you going to really use your normal summon on this card? That's the way I see it, especially since it can't be special. As far as the Dragon Rulers go, obviously with Earth, way too OP with the Emancipators. But Title, they got so much water support. I wouldn't even be surprised if they're like, all right, Title go off the list. I'd be okay with that because you guys know I'm a huge Murmo fan, but that's kind of me being biased. But as far as the Dragon Rulers go, Blaster maybe is the only one that can kind of come back into the game. We'll see if this shifts up the game. We already obviously have the Wind one. But, I mean, I wonder if Dragons could come back at full power and they wouldn't even be a huge threat. But we'll wait and see. But yeah, at the moment we just had this. But again, this and this have too much power in the game, I think, as far as Earth. But we'll have to wait and see. And Victory Dragon was kind of my wild card as well over here. Okay, hold on. A pointer of the Red Lotus is something that someone just mentioned here in the chat. So, I mean, for me, I saw this card go to $5 at one point over here. But at the same time, I don't know if it's going to be something that people will consider. Because going second and having this is like terrible. Obviously, this is like a go turn 1. It's pretty decent. You get to knock one card, and then you just negate everything else that your opponent has. The 2,000 life points doesn't really matter. It's a really great card going turn 1. But again, if you're going turn 2, it could still maybe be used, because you can knock out a hand trap eventually or something, but it's terrible to draw into, like you know, mid-game. That's the way I personally see it. Anyways, going back to my wild card over here, Victory Dragon. I think it'd be so cool for them to just add one of these, like, win conditions. Most of these cards never come off the list where it's like, if you reduce their life points to 0, you win the match. But it's my wild card that I wanted to go ahead and add, because sometimes there's, again, Snatch Steal came back. There's a lot of times something will come off the ban list that's really crazy, and then it'll just get removed as well. But anyways, that's the community ban list, as well as some of my personal thoughts on, of course, what you guys mentioned. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. And if there's something that I missed out on, let me know down below in the comment section below this video. But that is the community's, or my community's, ban list wish list that we went over here over on Twitch Live. But thanks for tuning in, guys. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it. And if you're new to the channel here, hit subscribe, turn on that bell, so you don't miss out when we cover the actual ban list and see how accurate we were, or if we were completely off. But thanks for tuning in, guys, and I'll catch you in the next video. Have a good day. I'm signing out. Peace.